all these years? Did I hear you say that mistakes and failure are bad has only existed in your mind, that you never did see it out there in the world? That's right. Now, if the belief is more real to you as a feeling than as a concept, if it seems as if your parents' words and behavior didn't lead you to see your belief, but rather to feel your belief, here's another way to look at it. Didn't it seem as if your parents' behavior when you were a child made you feel that mistakes and failure are bad? It did, didn't it? I'd like to suggest, however, that their behavior couldn't have made you feel mistakes and failure are bad, because as you just acknowledged, the events had no meaning. And meaningless events can't make you feel anything, can they? Let's use an analogy to make this totally clear. If you're sitting in your room reading a book or watching TV with no intention of going out, and it starts raining, what do you feel about the rain? Answer out loud, please. Probably nothing. The rain is not causing you to feel anything. Now imagine you're a farmer whose crops haven't had water for weeks and are now being saved by the rain. In this situation, how does the rain make you feel? It seems as if the rain makes you feel good. Well now, let's imagine you're about to have an outdoor wedding and everyone is getting soaked. How does the rain make you feel now? It seems as if the rain makes you feel bad. But is it really the rain that's making you feel good or bad? Or is it the meaning you're giving the rain? The rain itself has no meaning and can't produce any feelings. But give the rain one meaning and you feel good. Give it another meaning and you feel bad. So if mom and dad's behavior had no meaning, it couldn't have made you feel mistakes and failure are bad. And that leads us to a very interesting question. What did make you feel that? If you don't know the answer to this question, I'll tell you. You felt that only because that's the meaning you had already given to your parents' behavior. All you know for sure is what actually happened. Your mom and dad sounded angry or annoyed and perhaps punished you when you didn't do what they wanted you to do when they wanted you to do it. Let me help you make this real. Imagine that I had been there when you were a little child and had shown you the alternative interpretations for your parents' behavior. And after that conversation you concluded, my parents have unreasonable expectations of me. Their annoyance has nothing to do with whether mistakes and failure are bad or not. Now imagine being a little kid, and that after this conversation, mom and dad get annoyed at something you did or didn't do. Notice how it feels to be a child who's thinking, my parents have unreasonable expectations of me. That's why they're annoyed, not because mistakes and failure are bad. You can use the pause button below to pause the video while you make this childhood scenario more real for yourself. When you're done imagining, press the play button. As you imagine this scene, giving it this other meaning, does it still feel as if your parents' behavior and their comments are making you feel that mistakes and failure are bad? Probably not. And if you didn't feel mistakes and failure are bad then, would you feel it now? Again, you've probably just answered no, out loud. So mom and dad's behavior never caused you to feel mistakes and failure are bad. That feeling came from your interpretation of their behavior. And since your feelings were not caused by events in reality, they were only the result of the meaning you made up to explain the events, is it real your feelings tell you nothing about mistakes and failure? Okay, now take a deep breath, let it out slowly, and then say out loud, mistakes and failure are bad. Is it the truth? Does it still feel like the truth? You might say, of course mistakes and failure are not bad. How could I possibly think that after going through all this? But I'm not asking if the belief makes logical sense. I'm asking you to look at the statement in the same way you did when you started working on this belief. Does it still seem like mistakes and failure are bad is true on a gut level? Does the statement feel true? Or do the words feel flat now? Don't forget that we form beliefs to give meaning to events that have no real meaning. Having done that, We then think we observe the meaning in the events, out there in the world. It becomes a fact for us. Once we realize that the earlier events never had any real meaning, that the meaning was only in our mind, that it was never a fact, and that the feeling we had was caused by the meaning we gave meaningless events, the belief disappears forever. Take another deep breath, then let it out, and say out loud, mistakes and failure are bad. Doesn't it feel very different when you say these words now than when you said them at the beginning? Is there any sense of believing the statement at all? Unless the belief is 100% gone, so the words have no emotional meaning for you, you probably still have the belief. Remember, holding a belief is like being pregnant. You either is or you ain't. There's no sort of. The way to know if a belief has been eliminated is not to look at your feelings or thoughts in the past when you did have the belief, or even try to guess how you'll feel in the future. The belief felt true on some level when you started, or you would not have spent time on this program. When you say the words of the belief now, mistakes and failure are bad, do they still feel true like they did when you started? Or do they sound sort of meaningless? If there's no emotional resonance when you say the words, the belief is gone. It might be difficult to accept that a belief you've lived with for many years can be eliminated in about 30 minutes. And yet that's exactly what's happened tens of thousands of times using the Lefko method. If mistakes and failure are bad feels true at all, even a little bit, then you probably still have the belief. You probably need to review the last part of the process a second time, because on some level it still seems like you saw your belief. Once it's clear that you never saw mistakes and failure are bad, the belief will be totally gone. So if this is the case, please click the repeat button to repeat that step of the process. I want to congratulate you. You just eliminated a belief you've been living with for most of your life. Do you know that some people, possibly even you, spend years trying to get rid of a belief, and you just did it in about 30 minutes? Your fear of making mistakes might not stop totally, because you might have other beliefs that contribute to causing that fear. But by eliminating one of the most important beliefs causing that fear, there will be an observable reduction in that fear. Eliminating all the beliefs causing the fear would totally eliminate the fear of making a mistake. In addition to eliminating beliefs and conditionings, the Lefko method has another important element. Some people say this additional aspect is even more powerful and exciting than the process you've already experienced. This process, which I call Who Am I Really, requires you to have eliminated at least one belief before it'll work, which is why this short program comes right after you eliminated a belief. During the next few minutes, you will have a transformational experience that will blow your socks off. I promise. Try it and see for yourself. Please answer all my questions out loud. Even though it might seem a little strange talking to someone whose voice is coming from your computer and who can't hear you, I'm sure you're used to it by now. It's important that you make each step real to yourself, and when you answer out loud, that's the best way to do it. Okay? I'd like you to imagine that as a child you had me, friendly Uncle Morty, living across the street from you. Every day before dinner you came to visit me and tell me about your life, the good and the bad. You told me about your interactions with your parents, much like you've imagined when you thought about the childhood events that led to your beliefs. Imagine further that as you formed each belief, you also told me about it. So one day when you were about 4 or 5 years old, you came to my house and told me you had concluded, mistakes and failure are bad, or I'm not good enough. Because I knew all about how beliefs start, I'd have told you that your conclusions were very reasonable given the events in your home. I'd have assured you that almost any child your age, having the same experiences, probably would have concluded the same thing. But what if I then helped you, as a little child, find alternative interpretations for your parents' behavior? Do you think you'd ever have formed the beliefs you did? You might have walked out of my house with very different beliefs like, Mom and Dad are critical sometimes because they think that's a good way to teach me, or my behavior may not always be the best, but that doesn't mean I'm not good enough as a person. Is it real that if your wise Uncle Morty had helped you find these alternative meanings for your parents' behavior when you were a child, you never would have formed the beliefs you did. And if you had had different beliefs, your life would have been different, wouldn't it? So based on what I just said and on the work you've done on this computer program, can you acknowledge now that you create your beliefs? Please say out loud, I create my beliefs. Can you acknowledge that your beliefs determine your life? In other words, that your beliefs determine how you behave and how you feel. Please say out loud, my beliefs determine my life. Doesn't it follow then that if you create the beliefs that determine your life, that you ultimately are the creator of your life? It's not that you directly cause how you behave and feel. It's that you create the beliefs that determine how you behave and feel. Please realize that by referring to yourself as a creator, you do not deny the existence of God or a higher power, or assume yourself to be some supernatural creature. In a very specific sense, the meanings you give to meaningless events are the beliefs about yourself and life that ultimately determine what you do and feel. In that sense, and only in that sense, do you determine your life. And that's the best news I'll give you all day.